What is going on, crypto miners, and welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm joined with Mining Stacker here, and in today's video, we're going to talk about what does home mining look like in 2025. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for having me, hobbyist. It is quite an honor to be here.
The honor is all mine. I love having guests just like yourself to talk about topics just like this. So, home mining, it's been a tough one the last few years. I know it's been rough for most of our audiences, but let's give my audience a little bit of a lay of the land for you as you're new to my channel, haven't been on any of my videos yet, the first of many. What does your home mining setup look like at a high level?
So, mine currently primarily focused on ASICs. That was a huge, huge transition for me. Pretty much this entire bear run. It's been all ASICs transition right since the ETH merge. That was the goal, that was the plan. Started, and for me, it's been great, right? My goal has been different from a lot of people's. I don't focus on ROI like fiat values. I'm focused on just stacking, right? That's been the goal from the beginning, and we have executed just keeping things simple. I think a lot of people try to overcomplicate things by, oh, it's not looking too great, it's not looking too profitable, instead of just focusing on stacking, right? I made a game plan, set goals, and we just executed, right? So for me, it's been fairly simple on that end. The other big thing we ventured into are just things in case things didn't pan out so well. So a big focus for me were the Depin aspects. Depin things, another big one was like airdrop farming. That's a whole nother topic there. But Depins were definitely great just in case, it got really bad for a while, as far as profitability goes. Because the goal for me, break even or better. As long as it's breaking even or better, I'm letting it run, right? If it gets to the point where it's unprofitable, like drastically unprofitable, then at that point I'm plugging and buying. And it did do that quite a few times throughout this bear run, right? So depending on which miner it was, which project, just kind of went with the flow, set up goals, set up different parameters, and just execute it.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think you've kind of set yourself up in a really good position, especially to diversify, which has been huge for most people that I've talked to approaching into 2025 is like diversify as much as you can because you really don't know what's going to work out. And I think that's really a smart move overall with investing. Now, looking at 2025 here, something that I've heard across the board with my community is just the struggle for profitability. And the real reason behind that is a lot of it is electric cost. Operating costs have gone up across the board for everybody, home miners all the way up to large farms. And the challenge there is that cuts into our profit to the point where a lot of equipment that was profitable 2.5, 3 years ago is no longer the case anymore. What's your view of GPU mining from your perspective going into 2025? Is it a bust, a thing of the past, or do you think there's still some options there? Before we go too much further in today's video, I want to give a special shout out to the team over at Jingle Mining for sponsoring today's video. I've had the pleasure of working with the team over at Jingle Mining for the last 3 years as I've grown as a content creator and a home crypto miner, starting with the X41U, then moving on to the X4Q, and finally the new X16Q. These miners, hands down, are some of the best, most efficient, most reliable, and some of the quietest miners in the industry. If you're in the market to purchase your next crypto miner, go over and check out Jingle Mining. They now carry some of my favorite ASIC miners like Jazzminer, Gold Shell, Bitmain, Ice River, and many more. Go check out jinglemining.com via the link in today's video description and use the special code down below to give you a discount at checkout.
For me, it's definitely going to still be there. I sold the majority of mine, kept essentially just one 10-card rig. That's it. Ever since the ETH merge, that was the plan. That's what I've kept. And for the most part, they've just been running this whole time. So kind of have the same viewpoint there. As long as it's break even or better, they're going to continue to mine, right? As far as like being big into the spec mining and chasing all these crap coins, not really my thing. So I did a little bit here and there when there was things that were promising, like a lot of them just getting in and getting out ASAP. But for the most part, it's just sticking with what's tried and true, what I think it's going to do well, what I think it's going to be here. So as long as it's break even or better, I'm into it. I'm stacking it through, different times. I was stacking different things when Alephium was still around, Capsule was still around. All of those were the goals, right? Just again, keeping things simple. Like I don't like switching every week. I don't like any of that. Like typically, Like even right now, I'm on Alio and I'll probably be on there for a while, right? Even right now, as much as it's gone down, break even or better, I'm good. Once it gets to the point where it's unprofitable again, I'll unplug for a while. It's that easy for me. But do I think it's still going to be here? Yes. Do I think it's going to be as profitable these days? Absolutely not. I think it's still going to be profitable to an extent. Definitely the name of the game, just like we've been saying the past 2 years. Those times when those yields are great, those were the most profitable times to mine, right? So getting in now, once the profitability looks good, you're kind of too late, right? Ideally, you want to be just stacking, 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 and looking for that future price appreciation, right? So a lot of it is just hodling, right? So again, that's why break even or better for me. It doesn't matter if it's break even or if it's making $5 a day. For me, it's the same because at the end of the day, I'm not selling now. I'm selling in the bull market, right? I'm selling in 2025 and hopefully things price appreciate, but that's why I'm sticking with quality over quantity over all these like crap coins. I'm sticking with what I think is going to do the best.
Yeah, you're definitely a smarter man than me when it comes to liquidating that hardware as you kind of got out of majority of GPU mining after the ETH merge. I think a lot of it to me, and crazy to sound, was very emotionally attached. It was like, man, the amount of work I put into getting those GPUs during the Ethereum days, it was hard to kind of let go of that. But my rigs also sat, and I thought about selling them time and time again. And finally, more recently, it was like pulling that trigger. And a lot of people in my comments on those videos were like, you should have done this a year ago. You should have done this 2 years ago. And you guys are absolutely correct. Now, just like you, I've kept one GPU mining rig. It's a 12 card 3070 rig for such things as spec mining. I think there's definitely value there. But as you talked about, like that's a whole nother world. Just like, kind of chasing these coins. It's a whole nother world that like literally you could focus all your time on that if you wanted to in order to turn a profit. So venturing more into 2025 here, something that you mentioned, which I'm a big proponent of, but you're even bigger on that side, is Depin. Do you feel that Depin is really the future of home mining at this point, based off of the landscape, based off electrical cost? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it definitely is, especially right now with electricity costs just going through the roof. I mean, they're the point, they're never going to go back down. There's only one way it's going to go, and it's going to go up, right? And that's been the number one thing as to why people are currently unprofitable. It's those electric costs, depending on your electric rate. Even if you have a decent electric rate, like even with me being at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, that's borderline on the high end. Realistically, you kind of, if you're higher than that, if you're 12, 14, 16, 20 cents, it's borderline too high. And with Depin, that takes away that issue, right? At that point, like the majority of my things, they're all under like 10 watts, essentially no power. So it's no overhead. So it's really easy to just mine and stack during this time. Like, especially these past 2 years, it's been excellent. It's been the one consistent thing that no matter what, even though it's not worth a whole lot at the time, it's just continuing to stack and it's building that revenue stream. Especially when you have multiples of these things. Like, for example, just the car alone, I have the freaking Demo, the Sword Chain, the Hive Mapper, the Natix, all running at the same time. Like, are each one going to make life changing money? No, but combined together is just bringing in those revenue streams, right? And same thing with like Helium. I know a lot of people don't like Helium, but that's another one where it's been consistently stacking. Even the little IoT thing that a lot of people like to crap on, it's still making 80 something cents a day. 3 years later, that thing has paid itself over and over like 20x. It's been kind of ridiculous. So it's just more revenue streams coming in and just keep expanding, right? It makes it super, super easy and also makes it easier to just continue to hodl. I think that's another thing a lot of people had issues with is that they were trying to cover their electric out of their revenue. And when you're break even, why even mine, right? At that point, it makes it super easy to just continue to stack and continue to hodl those things because you don't have that expensive overhead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of miners out there that come from the GPU mining school of thought where they very much have blinders on to like, what is my profitability with that miner today? Looking at Depin, and they're entirely turned off from it. And it's a totally different mindset to pivot to the fact of like, I'm going to buy a product within the Depin world, which there seems to be a new Depin project launching every day for all of these different purposes out there, but they all seem to have some type of worldly problem, big or small, they're trying to solve that has a cryptocurrency attached to it. And buying one of these for low cost. And I say low cost, like most of these are under $500, which is a very small amount of investment that you have to get into. You're not over leveraging yourself in order to get into these projects. And then, just like you said multiple times during this recording, of hodling, it is not about like the profitability today with these new projects. It's about mining it at low operating cost, fractions, cents a day, and then taking your profits when it does absolutely have an opportunity to balloon. There's no guarantee with it at all. But the nice thing is I'm coming from the school of thought of GPU mining, where I was so concerned about my electric bill every month. Or with ASIC mining, as you know, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month in electric bills. You're not seeing that with Depin. So I think when I look at home mining and I look at the space right now, it's very attractive to be like, invest $500. You're into a project. It may do well. It may balloon. We really don't know, but you don't have that monthly recurring cost that's cutting into those profit margins, which I think are huge. And I think that almost pivots us a little bit into, I'd love to know from you, what are some of your deep in projects you're into right now? And what are, let's say, one or two that you're really hoping for 2025?
Some of my main ones are the ones that make most sense to me. I think the biggest thing that we're going to have to sift through, because like you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of these things. And get ready for next year when it's going to be a monthly, weekly thing where it's this new device, this new device. I think at the end of the day, you have to see what you value the most. What data do you see that is going to be most valuable? Like for me, as a car guy, certain ones make a whole lot of sense to me. So like Demo, for example, is a big one, right? That to me makes a lot of sense. That data is extremely valuable to not only other car manufacturers, insurance companies, like there's a lot of useful data there. So for me, that's definitely going to be a big one. Another one will be any of these mapping services, whether it's an ADIX, Hive Mapper, because that's another one that's going to be huge, right? Between autonomous vehicles or just mapping in general, right? We all use Google Maps or Waze. That data is extremely valuable, extremely important. And it's going to be worth a lot. So for me, I'm just going with the ones that kind of make the most sense. And for me, those are two of the big ones. And another one is Helium Mobile. It's a controversial one just because a lot of the issues that have gone on in the past. But as far as like use case and such, I mean, it's such an easy one to onboard people with. Like right now, as the subscription service goes, it's very easy to explain. It's very like a lot of people are using it. They're subscribed to the service and they don't realize that it's a crypto, it's a blockchain thing, that they have a wallet integrated in the app already. Like that's a big thing, is that it's going to increase that adoption without people even really knowing it's crypto related. That is big. Like that alone in itself is going to be a big thing. So I think a lot of those will do well. Another one I'm going to be big on, I was kind of debating on whether or not to get one. I ended up just ordering one, is GeoNet. That's another one that, again, it's a lot of use cases. That what they're going to use it for makes sense. So for me, those are going to be the ones that are most valuable for sure.
Yeah, I will say GeoNet is very much set it, forget it. Like mine has worked phenomenally since I put it in place, which you don't have that with all these projects. Sometimes they're always making changes as they develop and stuff, and can be really frustrating or questionable. My Helium Mobile made me lots of money back at its all-time high when it worked out awesome. Got into it early. I have since been kind of put on that Helium Mobile POC ban, unfortunately, and so nothing I've done. It's just there isn't anyone actively using my CBRS radio at this point. And so I actually ended up upgrading my phone to support a dual SIM, and I'm going to have to go that route in order to kind of achieve that, which is a real shame with the direction that's going. But I think you're absolutely right. Demo, man, Demo's been fantastic. I mean, it's been set it, forget it. The coin has increased in profitability, especially recently at the time of recording this, which is really, really nice. I think something you talked about a lot there, of like not only the use case, but also talking about data, and like data from Demo, data from these other projects. Data is very much becoming very valuable. And a lot of these cryptocurrency projects that integrate with Depin, that have a value of databasing data, whether it's your car details and information. One I got into more recently, Star Power, where it's kind of looking at your energy consumption and providing that to virtual power plants. It's like all of a sudden it's becoming like, who can collect data from where, and then who can that be resold to? I think it's great. It's a great avenue to go. I think that is a really smart move you mentioned there, though, about like looking at all these deep in projects, because there's so many coming out, and really looking at what worldly problem they're solving or what they're accomplishing to actually put value into investing into it. Because even though it's small, $500 here and there, that is still a hefty investment for a lot of home miners.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's gonna be a ton, and there's gonna be more that are coming up. It just depends on how creative they get, how useful
Mhm.
that data is. Like the one I'm kind of waiting for is for them to come out with like a freaking fitness watch for any guys who are like long distance runners. Like I wear my Garmin, and I'm giving away all that data for free. It tracks what your sleeping activity, your heart rate, how often you work out, your fitness level. That's a ton of useful data that they are making tons of money on, right? So soon as one comes there, that's one I'll definitely be jumping on. But there's going to be so many that we haven't even thought of yet, right? And that's kind of the beauty with all this is that, again, like you mentioned, in reality, what all these things do and the ones that to me are going to be most valuable are the data collection. What data is most valuable? And those to me are likely to probably appreciate the most here.
Yeah, so to end things off, let's talk a little bit about ASIC mining at home, because that is very much there's two ways we can go there: full size ASICs and small box miners. Let's focus on small box miners first. What are your thoughts on a lot of the small box miners that have come out? I see there's a few right above your head there for home miners, as well as in 2025 moving forward. What are your thoughts on those? Kind of what is coming in the future for those guys?
So the evolution has begun. Ice River started it. And essentially, because the problem before was they were always not as efficient, they were always not as good, right? So the big change we're seeing now with Ice River is that they are as efficient as the bigger machines. They are latest and greatest. It's just scaled down, which is something we didn't have last cycle. We had the gold shells with the chips that were a couple generations behind, and that was kind of the extent of it essentially. That's why to me it was always more of a novelty kind of thing. Like I most of my gold shell videos pretty much bashing a lot of them just because in terms of profitability, which is what I'm concerned about, that it does not compete with the bigger boys. These guys do. They are just scaled down versions of them. And I think as things progress, realistically, this is going to probably be the way, right? It's a lot easier to run a little 100 water than it is those, freaking 3,000 watts and now closer to 4,000 watt machines that are crazy expensive. It's going to be the future. I think next cycle, for example, I think it's going to be a lot of these things, a lot of like hydro units. It's going to definitely be different. Like it's because at this rate, the way things have been going, to me, the ASIC market as it is right now is just not sustainable with these constant releases, these crazy prices, these crazy price cuts. And I think the future of it will be these things, right? It's a lot easier to stomach let's say you buy and it's 800 bucks and then 6 months down the road gets cut down 50%, going from 1,000 bucks to 500 bucks. Not that big of a deal, but people who purchased like these recent lithium ASICs where it was like 30K down to 9K, that's, yeah, rough. So I think in general, as long as this becomes the trend, I think this will be a big thing, right? Between these things, like the jazz miners we've seen, those work great during this entire bear run, or it's something more efficient. And because it is lower wattage, it is easier to mine and hodl, even if it's barely breaking even, right? At this point, something that's like between 5 and 700 watts, pretty easy to stomach, but trying to stomach a 4,000 water and paying that thing at a loss, no good, right?
Yeah, the home miners definitely have evolved. I like that terminology there, where we just kind of settled for whatever last bull run because everything was kind of profitable in some capacity. But those same miners, very much the gold shells and some of those older box miners, they're a thing at the past of this point because what has happened is these new manufacturers, Ice River, AlphaPex, have come out with miners that are much more efficient and that do at least have some avenue of profitability to them, and they're not breaking the bank. We as consumers could definitely start to see some of this price gouging that's occurring, and it really turns us off. And so I think as more and more adoption for crypto comes into play, we're going to see more people picking up these home miners. And I think very much among at least my community, people look down upon these box miners so quickly because they've been in the scene for several years, not realizing a box miner is a great avenue for like a first time miner. Simple and easy to set up, a little bit of profitability, not insanely expensive. So I do think it's a good play. I like how Ice River has come to the table with more efficient, more competitive miners, and then AlphaPex coming out with like their DG1 plus home here coming out very shortly. That's going to be great because some of the efficiencies are pretty competitive versus some of the other script miners out there, which I think are great. To wrap things up, home ASIC mining at home in 2025, these big boy ASICs. Even though I am all about it, because I have, massive shed with 27 ASICs in there myself, and I've gone through it. And a lot of my success on YouTube has been building these out and doing this. I definitely view full size ASICs as a home miner as slowly becoming more and more of a thing of the past, and having to get these hosted or to come up with super creative ways to run them at home. One, because of the electric cost, and two, just covering that operating expense. I mean, it's crazy the amount of money that individuals like myself and you that you put out just to run these at home. What are your thoughts on that in 2025 for home miners for full size ASICs?
I think that's going to definitely be a thing, especially as far as how competitive it is now. Not with just Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin's always been a thing, and now it's ridiculously competitive. But like even these others are gonna follow a similar fate. We're gonna see it eventually with script ASICs. We've already seen it with Caspa ASICs, and it's just gonna continue down the line. I think a big part of the problem is that they are just coming out so frequently now. It's not something where like, oh, okay, I can get it and probably be okay for a year to 2 years. Now you're lucky to get 3 months. Like it's been on such a ridiculous scale, and they're able to put these things out so quickly now that it's not a sustainable thing. Like for me, it's been lucrative. We were picking, some certain algos that weren't the most popular, and those have been overall some of the best. But at the time, it's again, people didn't want them because they weren't making a lot of money. The problem is that is the time to get in. That's the time to get those and stack during those times when people don't want those algos, because we were able to stack a lot of coins. And that's a big reason that kind of did so well this bear market, right? So people who are just following pure profitability during the bear market, that's definitely not been the way. It's going to change here, though, hopefully this coming year. But just keep in mind that it's very limited, right? It could potentially only be like from here on out, the peak may be in like 12 months or so. And if you're buying something that has an ROI of like 2 years, you kind of have to think about those things. You have to factor those things in. And that's part of the problem with these bigger units, right? A lot of times with these smaller units, it's only like, $500, $600. It's easier to get that ROI, to like get that return on investment, versus potentially one of these things that's like $10,000, $15,000, right? So definitely going to change. To me, it's definitely going to be something on the smaller end. And I think it's just ASIC mining in general. Next cycle is going to look very, very different.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think as well, going back to what we talked about a little bit at the top of the video about just the cost of electric going up across the board in the US, a lot of people are, if they're interested in investing into ASIC mining, are pivoting away from doing it at home and getting it hosted somewhere, just because the electric rates they're not competitive to try to run at home. And more people are getting frustrated and like, I want to get into this. I want to buy these miners, but you just can't run them at home when you got 15, 20, 25, 30 cent electric rates. It's absolutely insane. So I totally get it. Well, guys, listen, myself and Mining Stacker covered a ton today, talking about GPU mining in 2025, Depin projects that we're passionate about, as well as ASICs. We'd love your feedback directly down below. Leave comments down there. And also, Mining Stacker, first time on the channel, give me your feedback. I'll leave a link to his channel directly down below. Please go over and subscribe to his channel. And for myself and him, we'll see you guys next time. Take care. Sorry to interrupt your video, but check this out. I constantly get emails from the community asking me about trustworthy hosting facilities in the United States that I recommend. Well, I got you covered. Listen up. A few months back, I visited Block Ops Mining's brand new facility in Central Arkansas. The team there was super professional, knowledgeable, and everyday miners like you and I. After visiting the facility, I sent them a few of my ASIC miners for hosting and have been super happy with their service and communication. Go contact Block Ops Mining directly down below in the video description and tell them the Hobbyist Miner sent you for great pricing on miners and hosting.